Good morning, good afternoon, actually, everybody. So we are going to run a session called When Social Work Works by people who have experience. And I'm going to do just the questions. So the first thing we're going to do is introduce everybody who's going to participate in these sessions. So my name is Carmen Colomina. I'm a social worker by profession. And I work in the Social Care Institute for Excellence in SCIE as a practice development manager. My main role, which I love, is to work across the entirety of the UK, improving social care practice in all settings and at all levels. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague, James Anthony, to introduce himself.
Thank you, Carmen. My name's James and I work in the communications team at SCIE. A lot of my job is supporting online events and webinars like this. So today I'm going to be keeping a keen eye on the chat box for any questions and passing on anything to Carmen as our chair today. I can't see the next slide, Carmen, but I think I'm introducing Ozzy.
I think you are. Yeah, absolutely. Hi, my name is Ozzy Stewart. Despite what it says on my label there, I'm based in London Borough of Camden, as my caption says there, and also I've been a user of social care services forever, as far as I'm concerned. Also, I'm been involved with local disability movement, and I've been very much involved with the rights and responsibility, choice and control disabled people should have in terms of receipt of services. I use direct payments and I have a personal assistance, and also I'm a trustee of SCIE as well. I do many other things too. My day job is training, advice and guidance to lots of public sector organisations, NHS, local authorities, universities, etc. But I'm very mindful of the fact that disabled people should have full control, choice control over their lives, particularly people from minority communities as well, which are usually thought about as an afterthought.
So the next person who's going to participate is Joe. If you can introduce yourself.
My name is Jo Barnicoat. I'm the parent carer of my son, who is 24 years old and now lives in supported living. I also do the SCIE co-production, the Oxfordshire co-production board, and support families through a small charity fighting their way through the system.
Thank you, Joe. The next participant is Jane. If you can introduce yourself, Jane.
Hello. So I was a professional and disbelieved to be invisible disability, to be ill, chronically disabled and autistic. So I had to retire early. I've been a sandwich carer for a while, but a long time carer for my eldest since they were born. And I now advocate very strongly. I'm also a trustee at SCIE and I sit on the co-production steering board, but I'm a trustee in several places and have founded a disability charity. Handing over.
Thank you, Jane. So the next person to introduce herself is Nadia.
Hi, my name is Nadia Clark. I have cerebral palsy. I am deaf and wear a cochlear implant to aid my hearing. I cannot communicate verbally and instead use a communication aid to talk and give me a voice. Although this itself is a challenge and takes me a long time due to my restricted movements, my first language is British Sign Language. I have used direct payments ever since I was young to employ my own personal assistants. I won the Skills for Care Employer of the Year award in 2016. I feel very passionately about direct payments and individual budgets when used correctly. Without them, I would not be able to live the busy and active life that I do.
Thank you, Nadia. And I should say that we also have with us today supporting Nadia with the BSL language, Gemma, Matza, Gemma and Katrina. Yeah, so you can see Gemma on the camera, but you can't see Katrina, but she is supporting Nadia today. So that's it from the presentation point of view. And now we want to talk about when social works work. So Jane Ossie, Joe, and Nadia. My first question to you is, if you were to mention one thing that you think is very important about social work, what would that be?
Carmen, just before you invite people to comment, can I ask you to stop sharing your slides, because then we can see everybody?
Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
So what would that be? Joe?
The first thing that I think is crucial is communication and reliability. For a social worker to always acknowledge emails, reply to queries, even if you don't have the answer, let the family know that you have received it. Actually do what you're saying you're going to do. Not just response to the emails, but also if there's any changes that are being made, any changes in circumstances, either for the social worker or the family or the house or whatever it is you're doing. Always turn up on time. Again, if you're going to be late, you've got a mobile phone, use it, please. You know, it all comes down to the open communication. And remember that the family that you're dealing with, the carers, family carers, have had a lifetime of experience of their family member. They are the experts. Again, communicate with them, listen to them. They know what they're talking about. Your job as a social worker is just the interface between the state and what that person needs. Your job is to ensure that they have the care and support and they receive it in a way that gives them the chance to live their full life and safe life. And the last thing I'll say about the communication is, please never call me mum. I'm not your mother. I have a name, use it. I don't refer to you as social worker. I use your name. Calling me mum immediately creates a power-based relationship, and it doesn't recognize my expertise that I have regarding his illness and disabilities. It's patronizing and it doesn't show any respect.
Thank you very much, Joe. Ossie, Jane, what do you think is one important thing?
Do you want to go first, Jane, or shall I go first? I really thought that was interesting, Joe. I will remember that about the mum bit, definitely. But no, I think Joe really, what for me, Joe, really resonates with me is the fact that you're really talking about co-production. That word is a big word. People think, oh, what's co-production really mean? It's very simple, really. And I mean, if you take from People First, the People First Concordia, that it's about respecting the individual, the family, the community they live in, and working with them first. As Joe rightly said, she's the expert. The family's the expert. They have all the knowledge that they need. All they need to do is make that knowledge tangible in a way that they can receive the service they need. So co-production is about that individual level, but co-production is greater than that. It's also about the communities you work in. Social workers, people don't work in a vacuum. They're not individuals on their own. They know people, they got friends, they got family, and also they're organizations. So there should be a way you'd be thinking, how could this person's information be shared? You know, agent advocacy, support, context. So co-production is much wider than just the individual. It's about making sure the individual's well informed, empowered to make decisions for themselves, and then helping them be aware of the other resources out there, which other organizations who are disabled people or carers and people like that who've been through the same thing can share to help empower them too. So co-production is a very strange word in lots of ways, but it really is about thinking about who's more important, who's important, how can I enhance this person's power so they can receive the services they need. I'll stop there for a moment and let Jane come in and see what she thinks. Avoid the mum bit, Jane.
Sorry, I keep being muted. Yes, you've touched on it. I'm very passionate about, we all are, about co-production, but for me, empathy, and there are different types of empathy. And I think effective empathy is really important, because not everybody will understand the situation families are in, carers are in. But without, and not everyone can be maybe show effective empathy, but without it, you're not respected and valued or understood. And I think, you know, the empathy has to be there in some form. There are different types. So if you don't have effective empathy, you have to be open-minded to understand another person's shoes, even though it's completely different to what you think. And that comes to respect, because if you respect someone's status and their family situation, then you're valuing their values and care and consideration. Sometimes we're in very traumatic circumstances and they're different from the norm, and you must see a lot of different situations. But I don't think, you know, it's really important to keep that open-mindedness, and not all families are obviously the ones portrayed on the television, for example, and some of our lifestyle choices are different, but they should be respected. So a part of it is listening, which has been said, and when told something, not writing it out completely different in the report. Passing to someone else.
Sorry, can I just interrupt a second?
Yeah.
Sorry, Nadia can't see me when you spotlight somebody. It knocks me off completely.
Okay, so can we not spotlight?
You might have
That's
to
fine,
spotlight
we can-
me and then other people as well, which means I would still be on. I know it'll be on screen for everybody, but at least I'll be there.
Gemma, so what we can do for Nadia is Nadia can pin you. So if she,
No,
if
yeah,
you,
but that when you spotlight, it knocks the pin off. It overrules it.
oh, okay, I'll just stop spotlighting. I thought that you could pin even if somebody's spotlighting. That's fine. We can stop that. Bear with me.
Okay. So thank you. Sorry about that, Gemma, and thank you very much for all the contributions. And I think it's important. I mean, I fully agree with everything you just said, but also how all those things fit together, isn't it? And it's not possible to do, you know, to be respectful or to be empathetic or to have proper communication without co-production, and with all of them linked together. And it's that core things what brings kind of the good social work. So I'm going to ask another question now, the second one, and because the session is about when it works, it will be helpful for people to hear from you an example of social work you have experienced that it has actually worked, yeah, and an example that hasn't worked for you, and what difference has that made in your life and in your quality of life and in the way you live your life. So just what is being different, and a good and a bad example. So who wanna start?
Should I go first? Because I'll see guys first today. Sorry about that. Basically, I think really the most mundane thing that happens to me in my interaction with social work is the annual visit I get from my social worker to check everything goes well, how I am, what it is. Now, you may notice I'm ruggedly handsome, sophisticated, a rather cool guy, you know, with you know, go around my business as I do. So what I do expect is when a social worker comes into my house, they recognise that I'm an autonomous individual and should respect that. We use the word respect and empathy. Be aware that I'm just a regular guy doing what I do. So what I don't want is when it goes badly wrong, is a social worker sitting there with their list of questions out in front of them, ploughing through them without even considering my context or who I am. So, for example, the question that really sends you at the wall, and where the conversation rapidly ends, is when they say, when I get the question, "Are you happy?" That question just sends me up the wall. And my response to that is, well, I think the conversation just finished. Goodbye. And of course they panic and it's not that. But what I'm emphasizing to them is how dare they demean me in that way. and not patronise me in that way. I find it very offensive, to be blunt. Now, the same situation happened 2 weeks ago. In September, not 2 weeks ago. That's 3 or 4 months ago. I had a social worker visit after the lockdown finished, and we sat down together. And we just had a chat about the stuff. I talked to her about how she was. She talked about how I was. I knew she was going through the process of checking and going through a job. I knew this. But what she did was just have a chat with me about my world, to find out what my world was, what was important to me, but in a way that dignified me. We both knew she had a job to do. And I knew she would be writing a report afterwards, which she told me about. But we had a conversation. I've learned more about her as an individual than she probably learned about me, because we had a chat about her life, my life, things we liked, disliked, etc., etc., how we're getting on and my concerns. And one thing I mentioned was, I mentioned that I'd attempted robbery quite recently. Somebody actually wasn't a robbery, actually. Somebody thought I was their girlfriend and tried to break in. I won't go into detail, but it was quite traumatic at midnight. So I realised I needed better security. So we talked about that. And then a week later, I got a phone call from somebody saying, I've been passed on to you about talking about security. Do you want to have a chat about that? About cameras and doorbells and things like this. And I thought that was really good, because she took that on board. She realised an issue for me and followed it up, obviously with my permission. That, to me, is good social work. What, to me, isn't good social work is people who don't see me as an individual with my own life, my own reality. Go into somebody's house, treat that house as if it's their community centre, not their home. Read through lists of questions without looking at the individual. You are going to fail. Dignify that person with the environment they're in. You're more likely to succeed. That's my perspective on that question.
Amazing, thank you, Ossie. Really, really amazing example. Joe, Jane?
I'll go next, because mine actually follows on quite well from Ozzie's. Last year, my son was supposed to be moving into supported living. So we approached the social workers and they said, oh, don't worry about that. We've got a long time. No, we don't. It takes a year to sort it all out. First social worker did an assessment. She never met my son. She didn't go to his college to meet him. She cut and pasted from his last assessment 3 years previously. She spoke to me a bit, but she never spoke to my son. She never spoke to the college. And she ended up writing that he likes to spend a lot of time with his grandmother. Granny died 3 years ago. We got a new social worker. That social worker came and met my son on 3 or 4 occasions. By this time, we were out of college and he was home where he wasn't supposed to be, but he met him. He got to know him. He tore up the assessment and started again. He realised that actually I didn't know my son so well anymore. He went and spoke to the college people, the carers who'd looked after him. He really got to know him, and actually he found somewhere for him to live that was suitable rather than just a void within the community. And he came and spoke to me, and he dropped the assessments off so that I could read them on paper, even though we were in lockdown situation. You know, all these things took place in the garden. He made the reasonable adjustments to get it right. So my son finished his college in July. He actually moved into the supported living because the social worker bent over backwards to help him in September. And it has been a roaring success. And he carried on checking it out for another 8 weeks because, of course, we were in lockdown and couldn't really go in and out. So he kept checking up on me, checking up on my son, checking up on the providers. And that was how perfect social worker could be. Whereas the previous one never came back to me, never got to know the person, just like Ozzy says. didn't. It was a tick box exercise. Asked some questions, looked back on what was said previously, and made it up.
Thank you, Joe. Amazing, powerful example. You nearly made me cry here. Thank you for sharing that. Jane, do you have an example to share?
Yeah, I have. I might look away because I'm just reminding myself visually, but I don't often talk about it because it's a bit traumatic for that situation. So my eldest left formal education a few years ago, so a bit older than Joe's son, and there was no transitioning then, so we were left with nothing, and it was all up to me to get adult social care involved and get the package, because my eldest wanted to do a course, and I was traveling and working where I'm a single parent as well, and they wanted to do something to carry on, and we found something which wasn't near me, but I couldn't look after them anyway, and that was in principle accepted, except we had a social worker who came round at a set time but didn't arrive for 1.5 hours, which all made us very anxious, to the point where my eldest wouldn't meet them. So we arranged it again. In the meantime, I talked about issues. I hadn't been in touch with them before, but it was all very formal, as I said, writing down notes and everything. And she came again another time, was an hour late, and this time, instead of saying she couldn't find it, she didn't give any excuse. And it, you know, that just really makes us anxious, because we're trying really hard to do everything on at the right time. A package was worked out, and my eldest was hosted in supported living in the county, and we had a set place. And to put it very briefly, it looked really, really good. We were all happy. We all went down to meet them, and then suddenly it was stopped, and the course was starting soon. And they didn't give me a reason why. They just said it wasn't suitable, which might be. I don't know. I understand, you know, there are certain things, but suddenly we were put with another couple, and I did have my gut instinct there was something wrong, but I didn't know what to do, and the social worker was convinced it was right. So my eldest started there, and things deteriorated really badly. A family member visited them, and they said they don't look well, you need to go down, and I did as much as I could. They had holes in their shoes. They just looked awful. The skin, the hair, everything. They lost some of the independent skills we'd worked on, and everything, and just seemed really down, and loved the course, but really was not happy. And I said, do you want to leave? And they said yes. So I asked the social worker, and everything I said was disbelieved. Everything that Jay said was disbelieved, and things were made up about us, absolutely made up. I've still got it written, and it was really upsetting, but I didn't have that power to do anything then. I do now. And so it was very upsetting, and in the end I realized that this couple were using us as a cash cow, and as soon as we could, with Jay's consent, absolutely, I dashed down there, and we just sort of ran from the place, took their belongings and left, and it was the best day ever. And we will never do that again. Supported living, for us, it didn't work. I'm sure it does for others. So but the good one, I hope I'm not telling me if I'm going over, comment, because I will. I can talk for 3 days. The good one,
yes,
I had
just 1 second, Jane. Can we please remind people who's not presenting to turn off the cameras? Rosita, can we please, because you just joined, sorry, we gave the rules at the beginning. Thank you. Sorry, Jane, go on.
The good one, I had another social worker afterwards, because we had to work out the package again and what Jay was going to do. And I just sort of blurted all this out, and you know, you didn't believe me, and so on and so forth. And she said, well, let's start from the beginning. You tell me everything. And okay, she had the paperwork and everything, but she just sat there and listened, and it was absolutely fine. There was no condemnation of anything about our lifestyle, and with empathy, I would say, with respect. And we didn't agree about everything what we wanted, so she was quite honest about that, and I had to take that on board too, and that was fine because there was a clear explanation later on, and we talked. So and she also valued me as a carer, because I've never been accepted ever as a carer. So that was the first time, and why I sit on trustee carers now. That's it.
Thank you very much. So I really want to thank the three of you. I think the audience agree with me that those are three amazingly powerful stories. I am enormously grateful because I heard the words like traumatic, difficult, sad, tough, and it's not easy. It's not easy to talk about these things, but for people like me who really are proud of social work, it's so important to hear from you when we get it right and when we don't. And what can we do to get it right all the times? Because it really makes the difference in your lives, and you have explained that brilliantly. You have mentioned something, Jane. You said trust, and somebody in the chat was talking about honesty. And absolutely, I mean, meaningful relationships have to be based in trust and honesty. And at the end of the day, a relationship between any two individuals, whether it's professional or personal, has to be based in honesty and trust. And that's the relationship between a social worker and a carer or a person who accesses services. So equally, trust and honesty are absolutely fundamental for that. So I'm gonna now give time for Nadia to tell us about her examples and her point of view in these questions we have already asked. So Nadia, over to you.
I have had lots of social workers come and go. Some have been great and have listened to me. Some have been not so great, and I have not always felt listened to. This is why I think it is important that I have an advocate who is independent and who can ensure that I am listened to by social workers. At the moment, I do not feel that social workers are involving me in my care. It feels like they only see me when I ask them to, and this is not very often. Then they make decisions about me, and I wait to hear what the decision is. I did feel fed up during the first lockdown, because I did not hear from my social worker. I felt forgotten about. So my PAs and my advocate helped me to organize a Zoom meeting with my social worker. I feel it would be better if I had more contact with my social worker. Unfortunately, I do not feel I have positive relationships with social workers. There was one social worker that I did have a good relationship with, and this was because she was person-centered and kept me informed about what she was doing and why she had to do things. She also visited me at home and made the effort to get to know me. But this is not the same for all social workers. I think that social workers and advocates could work better together. I don't feel that social workers actively involve advocates. They sometimes need reminding. But me and my advocate, and my team, make sure that my voice is heard, and my advocate works with the social worker, and comes to meetings. It is really important that my social workers have deaf awareness. For example, my social worker can't just ring me up. I cannot speak on the phone, and I cannot hear what people are saying. I require my social workers to book BSL interpreters for me. When this is planned well and organized, I have seen that this works really well. However, booking an interpreter is not an easy task. Interpreters need notice and are often quite booked up. So social workers need to be organized and have secured an interpreter well in advance. It works well when my social workers get used to emailing me. This is my preferred method of communication. Or text messages. It may take a little longer, but I prefer emails. It allows me to fully understand what is being said, and I can take my time to respond. Another important thing to help improve communication is not to rush appointments with me. I need time to understand what you are saying, and then I need time to write my answers on my communication aid. I also struggle with really long appointments. I need to take regular breaks, otherwise I can become tired. It is really hard work trying to listen and lip read, or watching an interpreter. I then have to absorb all this information, and try to convert my responses to English, so that you will understand my answers. I also need you to remember to not speak over each other in meetings. There have been many times when professionals are all talking in meetings, and this is frustrating because I miss out on those conversations. So only one person should speak at once. Interpreters also need you to speak one person at once. The most important thing to improve communication is for social workers to spend time with me. Come and get to know me. Don't be afraid to ask me and my team, and my family questions. I think it is good practice to ask me questions about things you are unsure about, and to remember that I am the specialist in my own life. It is okay to ask me to say something again, and similarly, if I don't understand you, I will ask you to repeat something. I am very good at lip reading, but in order for me to do this, I need to see your face, and it helps once I am familiar with your voice. This is why it is important that you have spent time getting to know me. One area of my support that has been very positive and worked well is having my own advocate. My advocate has acted as a go-between professionals and I. She has been able to spend time really getting to know me and how I communicate, and has been able to make sure I get the support I am entitled to. It isn't always easy speaking to professionals, especially if it is about something I am unhappy with. So having my advocate to talk to about these issues makes this much easier. The main bit of advice that I want to share, and feel strongly about, is that social workers should focus on my dreams, wishes and ambitions first and foremost. They should then look at funding and cost implications after this. Social workers shouldn't just focus on the cost of services. Remember that this is my life, and all I want is to live it independently. I know my care costs a lot of money, but I should not be made to worry about this. I want my social workers to be person-centered, and to focus on making sure I am kept fully informed about the progress social workers make, in terms of completing assessments, and the steps they are taking that involve me. In an ideal world, I would also like to have a social worker for a long period of time, because it is important that I have a social worker who knows me well, and someone who makes contact with me regularly. I need a social worker that I can work together with, and someone who feels passionately and enthusiastically about making the path of my dreams a reality.
Thank you very much,
All
Nadia.
your services were fantastic and helpful and understood my disability. However, when I turned 18, I transitioned to adult services, and they didn't understand about my needs and didn't seem interested in me. I felt uncomfortable, and they tried to cut my budget, and I felt like they were not interested in my life. I have experienced professionals telling me that I will not be able to live independently, and lots of times people were talking about how much I cost the council. This was scary and upsetting for me. I feel there is lots happening in my life, and whilst it is an exciting time, transitioning to independent living, it is scary and there are lots of confusing conversations happening about funding. But I do not fully understand, and I want to be included. I am very scared and anxious about my future, and what would happen if my funding was cut. I need a social worker who is reassuring and able to make sure I am fully aware of what is being communicated. I have had a couple of great social workers who did all of the things I said I want from a social worker. They took the time to get to know me and my needs. For example, to understand how I communicate, and to know me well enough to feel comfortable with communicating with me. They understood about my physical and sensory disabilities, and they were able to empathize with some of my needs and showed interest in my life. I liked that I had regular contact with them, even if it was just a quick check-in, to see if I am okay. I wish all my experiences of social workers had been like this, but unfortunately that is not the case. I understand social workers are busy professionals, but I do not think I am asking for too much.
Okay, Nadia's done now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Nadia. That was amazing. To really powerful story. And I have to say, as a social worker, you know, even though I talked to you before, you touching a lot of things inside me is absolutely amazing. Really, to be reminded how much we can do from the positive and the negative, and support the reflection on what do we do on daily basis, and whether we use those tools and skills and knowledge in the right direction or in the wrong direction, really, because it's up to us as professionals to do that. And one thing that you all mentioned that I always use a lot is to remind myself is the fact that this is my job, but this is your life. And for me, that's the bottom line of it. Yeah, I walk away from it. But this is your life, and it's a massive distinction between the role we play in interactions and the impact of our actions. We have, based on the examples from the four of you, really, we have a question that applies to all of you, so you can all respond, to some of you like completely freely. But somebody is interested in knowing, when you had to change social workers, was that easy? Did you have to complain? How did you go on about it? Are you happy to share your experiences about how did that happen? Or what did you have to do?
When we changed social workers, I went legal. We got legal aid and went to solicitors.
Okay.
Because it wasn't happening how it should have been happening, and as you can probably tell, I'm aware of what the laws are and the Care Act, and no, I instructed solicitors and they wrote a letter, and then it all changed and it all went right. and actually the local authority changed the social worker. But I do know from experience that if you don't get on with your social worker, it is incredibly difficult to persuade the powers that be that actually the relationship isn't working. They are very reluctant to do so, which is a problem.
Yeah, thank you. Jane?
Yeah, I complained, and the social worker suddenly moved on. I don't know. This was a while ago. I mean, I would do it differently now, do it Joe's way, but it won't happen again, will it? And so they moved on, so they couldn't take the complaint any further, and I didn't know anymore, but I got a new one, so, which was good.
Okay, thank you. Ossie or Nadia, do you have a response or a comment you want to give on this?
Nadia would like me to say, Nadia made a complaint when she wanted to change social workers, and she didn't feel like she was getting anywhere very fast, so she emailed the chief executive of the local council, and then that was fed down, and she had a meeting with the chief of social work, and that got things moving quite quickly from there, and she now has a new social worker in place, and Nadia's doing some training with her to get understanding of what Nadia's particular needs are and how she wants it to work.
Brilliant, thank you. Ossie, you want to comment that?
I mean, I don't really have too much to say beyond what everybody else has said, that go legal or having to go, you know, push it quite hard. But except to say that I've got a very good relationship with the social work department. I mean, because of the disability movement, we work in Camden, and so the relationships are quite good. So I suspect if I would say, hang on a sec, you need to do something about this individual, they would respond to that quite empathetically, simply because they know where the power is in Camden, and it isn't with the social work department.
And it does strike me because, again, several of you have mentioned, I mean, you used, Joe, quite powerful expression. You said the powers to be, yeah? And whereas I do know that that's the reality in a lot of places, you also said, I know my rights and the act. And, you know, I do think it's unfortunate that people has to use legal, you know, channels to get somebody to listen to them or to felt listen. I also think that it's unfortunate and absolutely wrong that people need to know the law. Yeah, we are the professionals. You just need to know about your life. We should put the knowledge about the law. The fact that you need to learn about the law because you don't feel we are supporting you in what the law says is definitely, from my point of view as a social worker, the wrong relationship there. Yeah, we should be the ones who know that. So I got another question for all of you, and if you were to give social workers a message, any key message, what would that be?
I'll go.
Joe, I think you should go first.
I was going to just add to, before we answer the question, that something that Nadia said, which none of the rest of us mentioned, was the advocacy side. There is so little referrals for advocates, and then even if you do have an advocate, the social workers quite often don't keep the advocate in the loop, and that for some people is just, it is the most important thing that ensures that they can be part of the decision making, not just giving them their voice, but that helps them to be part of it all. So my message to a social worker is, in answer to your question, is watch your language. I am a person that goes out with my mates for a meal and a drink. I am not a service user who accesses the community, has my liquid intake monitored and my nutritional value of the meals I ordered noted. I have friends that I go out and have fun with, not interacting with peers in the mainstream environment. I get cross and frustrated like everybody else, not showing challenging behavior. And because I don't want to fit into your timetable. I live in a home, not a placement. I move into a home, I don't transition. Please watch your language. I'm a human being. not a case. Thank you.
Fantastic, Jo. Thank you. Thank you. Jane, Ossie?
Hi. I don't know how to follow that, Jo. I was, and it's not so pleasant, but I'd just like to say that for us as an autistic family, we come in different, we're all different and unique, and we don't kick off. I hate it when the social worker, the first one, said, oh, when they kick off. That, anyway, so that would put my back up slightly. There's a lot of disbelief, as I said before, that's built up over the years. So in various areas, social care and health and other areas. So that disbelief, I believe, not just for my family, but for others in our sort of situation, can lead to post-traumatic stress disorder when they hear a social worker's coming. And unfortunately, because I have great, I really esteem the work you do, but we do have post-traumatic stress disorder, and that can make us a little bit defensive. But you have to understand the situation we've been in for years of not believing us, and I don't think we lie, but I definitely don't. But I was accused of it so many times, and making things up. So I hope, as I said, values and respect and empathy and all that co-production will be the key drivers.
Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you very much. Ossie?
Nadia's happy to, Nadia go next, or should I go next?
I think Katrina was just asking me if she could take over interpreting for a while. So if you go,
Okay.
Ozzy, and then Nads
Okay.
can go next if she's got something.
Great. Okay. I had a spinal injury many years ago when I was an 18-year-old kid, although I'm about 22 now. It actually was a long time ago. I will tell you now, if I had a choice, I would never, ever have a social worker in my home, ever. When you come to my home, you're a guest. I understand that this is a power issue. You are there because you have to be there. I cannot access live the way I want to live without interacting with you. So it's a power issue. I respect that. But remember one thing, a decision you make, the way you behave, can either ruin my day or make it. Understand that power, respect me as a human being, and make sure you do not abuse it. I was simply saying that, that's what I already say, because I don't choose to have you there. If I had my choice, I would never, ever have you ever again in my home, but I have to. Understand that and respect that, but also understand the power you have over me and respect that power too. And don't ruin my day, because you won't like me if you did.
Thank you very much, Ossie. And very inspiring too. Nadia? Any messages for social workers? Final messages?
Don't just ask me your questions. Ask me what my dreams are, what I want to do with my life, and what choices I want to make with my life. That's it. Thank you.
Brilliant. I don't think much more needs saying there, really. Gosh, you left me speechless, and I have to say that's not easy for those who know me. I'm nearly kind of very emotional here. I want to thank enormously the four of you and Katrina and Gemma for the support. I want to thank you for your honesty, for your trust in social work, even despite of the bad experiences you have, and for working with me and being with me, and having hope that really this is a marvelous profession that can do a lot of good and acknowledging that good whilst also highlighting that there is a path we need to walk. And I got a message for all the social workers listening too, and it's, don't forget what you heard, guys. Don't forget it. This is really an incredible profession. We can do a lot of good. So please remember, I mean, Nadia, Jane, Ossie, Joe, they can have amazing lives if we do our job properly, and they can have miserable lives if we don't do our job properly. We sign up for this, they didn't. So we have a choice whether we actually help them, support them, and walk to a marvelous life with them, or we leave them on the left and not support it. And somebody has put in the chat a certificate about CPD. There is no certificate, but do reflect in what you have heard. Do reflect in how that can improve your practice. And by all means, that's what CPD is about. It's about being a better social worker every second after the previous one. And what can you do differently? Any final thoughts from anybody?
I just hope, like you said, that people reflect on this. Actually, we've been very positive because we can see it working well, but why it doesn't work so well, unfortunately, is experience we've had too often. We would really like the idea that all the 100 people here go away and make the lives of people they work with better tomorrow.
Thank you.
I was going to reiterate what Ozzy said actually in his one. Actually, none of us want social workers in our lives. We really don't. And by the time you get there, we're often at crisis point. So you have to bear that in mind.
Yeah. Jane, Nadia, any final thoughts? You don't have to, just if you want. No? Okay.
Nadia doesn't.
Okay, no? Okay, so I think that brings us to the end of the session. So thank you very much to everybody, all our listeners and all our participants, and Social Work England for giving us the opportunity to run this session and share these invaluable experiences with everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody. I was extremely grateful that my camera was off during that session. Very, very emotional, and actually, just the way you expressed it, it was funny, it was moving, it was powerful, it was painful. I don't think there's enough descriptors for me to be able to explain everything that I felt during that. So thank you so much. I think so many of you said so many powerful things, but I think just Nadia, one of your final comments will stay with me forever, which is, don't just ask me questions, ask me what my dreams are. It's just so beautiful, and I can actually feel that breaking in me as I say it. So I think I'm going to try and wrap up as quickly as possible, because that was just so incredible. Thank you, everybody, for sharing those experiences, and I think there will be a lot for people to reflect on. We hope that you enjoyed today's session, and we'd really appreciate it if you could take some time to fill out the survey that Katie has just popped into the chat. Again, we'd welcome any thoughts via our post-event survey, and also by emailing socialworkweek@socialworkengland.org.uk. And again, as Carmen's already put it so beautifully, she's a great CPD advocate. Please do use this as part of your CPD. I think I don't think there's many more pieces of CPD that could be more powerful than reflecting on something like this, because I just think these are the people that we support, and it's really important for us to ensure that we reflect on the lessons that they have to share with us. So thank you very much. Please enjoy the rest of the day if you are going to be joining in the last few activities that we've got for Social Work Week, and please do tweet using hashtag Social Work Week 2021, and we will end there. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.